Hello and welcome everyone in another episode of Researchers Celebrity. Today we have Dr. Rafi Ahmed with us. A brief introduction of Dr. Rafi. He has done his bachelor's and master's in biotech and genetic engineering from Institute of Biotechnology and Genetic Engineering, Peshawar, Pakistan. For his PhD, he went to Brazil and joined Oswaldo Cruz Foundation, also known as Free Cruz, and currently he is postdoc in COMSATS University, Islamabad. With this brief introduction, I would like to say thank you so much, Dr. Rafi, for taking time out for this conversation.
Thank you so much for giving me the chance to talk to you.
We always start our conversation that how and when you decided that you want to become a researcher.
Well, it's a good question. Actually, when I was a kid and I started to feel that like germs they cause diseases, so it was like my enthusiasm to see how are like the how this phenomena works and ultimately how can we save ourselves from being sick. It was from my right from my childhood that how can we do that. The first thing is to know how they cause it, and the second thing is how can we protect ourselves. So that's the thing that brought me here.
So you mentioned like as a kid, the curious brain, like why do we get sick? And then how can we, save us or prevent us ourselves from that? So let's start with the university degrees. When you were doing bachelor's or master's, were there any thought that you will ever do a PhD?
Of course, there was because when I would talk to my family and my friends that right after the graduation I'll be doing some work and earning money and living my life. They always said, "No, you have to go ahead with the research and degrees and whatsoever, and you have to excel in what you are doing." So in the beginning, it was not my plan, but as much as I learned as time passed, I started to get motivated, because the more you know, this is my phenomenon, it might be wrong, that the more you know that you don't know, right?
Mhm.
So the more I got into the phenomena of infectious diseases and disease causing and everything, I got interested. And by the end of my bachelor's degrees, I decided that I'll excel in the field of research and technology and whatsoever.
Nice. So that being said, when after your masters, what were the thoughts and what were the criterias why you chose Fiocruz?
Well, that's a very good and excellent question. After my master's, we had a dengue outbreak here in my part of the country. It's north of Pakistan. It's very cold, and everyone was stunned because it's cold. Mosquito population. It's very rare to see any mosquitoes here. So I was hired by the World Health Organization to fight dengue. So in that period, I started to contact people from different countries, for example, China, India, Brazil, because these three countries particularly had a lot of dengue cases. Then there was like Sri Lanka, Thailand, Singapore, or whatsoever. But my target was these three countries: China, India, and Brazil. I contacted a lot of people from China and a lot of people from India and Brazil. The thing that why I chose Fiocruz, that one of these researchers, her name is like Denise Valley. She was exceptionally excellent and helpful. And whenever I asked any question, she would tell me in details that how Brazil fought against dengue and other vector-borne diseases. So after I was finished with WHO, I kept talking to Denise Valley and I said, okay, I want to be your PhD student. I want to be a PhD. And she said, oh, sorry, I'm not part of the Fiocruz any longer because I left. And she's now in the, we call it in Portuguese, Divulgação Científica. the scientific divulgation project that she teaches the kids and common people about infectious diseases and mosquitoes and whatsoever. But she forwarded my email to five of her colleagues. One of her colleagues, who became my PhD supervisor, he replied to my email and asked me, "What do you want?" I said, "I want a PhD degree in Fiocruz because Fiocruz has this global reputation and it's a very well known organization." And he said, "Let's proceed with the thoughts and projects." And he gave me his research papers and asked me to write a proposal. And then like, I became part of Fiocruz, which I'm really proud of.
Nice. So you mentioned about the to and fro of research ideas, and when your PhD supervisor mentioned that you come up with an idea. So, for the sake of the audience here at Researcher Celebrities, because that this is what we share the conversations, that people do enroll in PhD either with their own ideas or with the expertise or the project, ongoing project in the lab. On the basis of your experience, what are the things you can share that having your own idea and project and pursue your PhD versus there is a project ongoing in the lab, you join it, you perform it. What were your experiences on that?
Well, it's an excellent question. Again, when I contacted my professor Ademir Mahshins, I was coming from a virology background because my degree was biotechnology and genetic engineering, and I was doing things with dengue virus. And when I started contacting Ademir, he said, "Oh, I'm working with mosquitoes and control. So you should tailor your ideas based on what we are doing in our lab, right?" So that's what students ask me, that you ask me now, that what should we do? Should we focus on what we know, or what my ideas are, what I'm capable of, or should I choose what the lab is doing? Right? So my answer to them is that, like, your supervisor must be supportive of your ideas, right? Because, for example, I was coming from a virology background, but when I started working with mosquitoes, my supervisor still respected my creative ideas, and he encouraged me to be creative, not like go with the flow thing, whenever I asked him that I want to do something different, he said, "Please go and do that." He never asked me, "Don't do it because it's not my expertise." You know, uh, a collaboration is the best of research. So, for example, my lab, we used to do insecticide resistant stuff, but he proposed me to do population genetic stuff. And population genetics is somehow different from insecticide resistance. So we contacted our colleagues from the University of Yale, and they agreed, and we worked on that. So to summarize, I think you should choose the lab based on your own thoughts, because sometimes there is a very good position in a lab, and you say, "Oh, it doesn't align with my expertise or whatsoever." But you should be smart enough to adapt yourself to that research environment and still be creative.
Being adaptable and creative is, I think, the core values in any researcher, as you
Of course.
said, Dr. Rafi, obviously. And for all the audience, we'll say that, as Dr. Rafi mentioned, that having this research focus driven ideas, that you are passionate about something, you always should look for the labs, the like supervisors who have the expertise in that field. It might not be absolute, as Dr. Rafi mentioned. It can be, somewhere in parallels, but you have to have that support of the supervisor or the mentor in this case, that they are there to support your ideas. They give you the freedom and the all the infrastructure, whatever is required, based on the difference between the infrastructure in Pakistan and Brazil. What were the different challenges? And we'll come to the science, the later part. But when you moved from Pakistan to Brazil, what was the first challenge you faced?
Well, excellent question again. The first and foremost was a cultural shock, you know, because we live in the same world, but in very different scenarios, two different realities. For example, greetings is starting in the morning. You go to the lab, people come and they come close and they hug you. We don't do that in Pakistan. So it was like quite different for me. But my supervisor was exceptionally supportive. He supported my religious ideas. He supported my culture. He even asked me to come in shalwar kameez if I could to the lab, just to be easy with the things. And then it was Portuguese all around, so you have to learn the language. So when you move from a setting like a reserved setting like Pakistan, and you go to an open setting like Brazil, the first and foremost, the first challenge is the cultural shock that I faced, I think. And I was, to be very honest, not ready for that. But you have to be, adaptive, as you said, and you have to be receptive as well. For example, you have to accept that you are living in a different reality. You're far from your home. You don't have the chatpati khanas, the chatpati recipes, the chatpati everything. You have to eat those things. So yeah, I mean, the first and foremost thing challenge was this cultural shock that I faced.
So, in these conversations with our researcher celebrities all around the world, this is one of the things what we say is that science is going to be the same any part of the world you do. But what are differences is, as you mentioned, it is about food, it is about, the salwar kameez, as you mentioned, the way you dress up, the way you talk, the way you hug, as you mentioned. So one thing which I would like to ask you, that apart from the cultural shock, as you already mentioned, either it is about the work culture or it about the language or about the dress up, when you see, just comparing the science between Pakistan and the infrastructure you had it in Brazil, how were they different?
Well, I must say Brazil was exceptionally different and uh, uh, better than what I saw in Pakistan. We spend very few money on science, and they spend a lot. For example, I need a primer for my PCR and some solutions. In Pakistan, if it is quicker, I can get it in a month. In Brazil, the maximum time I get a primer or solution is a week. That's coming from the US and whatsoever. So Brazil was, I mean, I could use any equipment. I could go anywhere and use any equipment in any lab under any supervisor. In Pakistan, you have to ask permissions and you have to go through a lot of bureaucratic processes to do a simple thing. In Brazil, it was quite different. You just ask them, okay, I want to do this experiment in your lab, and I can acknowledge you in my scientific publications, and I can ask you to collaborate in the write up of my paper. So I mean, it was quite different, and it was, better than what I saw in Pakistan. And still, I'm experiencing the same thing. I mean, I am supervising students, and they come up with the same problems. People are not allowing them to use their equipments, their solutions. I am different because I am bringing something different from Brazil. A couple of days ago, a master student from chemistry department came to me and asked, "I need some solution from your lab, and if you would." I said, "Don't ask me. Just ask my students. that you need it, and note it down so that I know that this solution is depleting or we need it in a week or two. So I should be aware of we need it, of the needs of our lab. Else, go ahead with what you do. I don't need any acknowledgement of my work or my support. Just go ahead with what you want to do.
So, this perspective of collaboration, this perspective of supporting the science, what would you say? You had this before leaving for Brazil, or this is something which you have imbibed only during your PhD in Fiocruz?
Well, I'd say it was in me since my childhood, because I was brought up by my parents in a way to help the other, you know. And if you see my religion in the true sense, it also tells you to be helpful as much as you can to the next person, you know. So helping other was in me. But the thing is, again, was I able to do it in Pakistan? I would say not as much as I could do that in Brazil, you know, because in Pakistan I had limited stock of solutions, limited access to equipments, uh, a lot of bureaucracy. In Brazil, it was different. Now, what I am trying to do is to develop this culture in Pakistan. Once a student told me that, what if you're not able to do it? I said, I'll pack my bag and I'll go where I could do this thing, you know?
So, this brings us to our next question. Like, as you mentioned, we have seen people doing their PhDs, postdocs abroad, especially from Asia, be it China, India, Pakistan. People go for their PhDs or postdocs outside in UK, US, Brazil. And when they come back, they feel that cultural shock way more than they have felt during their first move, moving out of the country. Now coming back to country is even more challenging. What can you say and share the experience with our audience? Because there are always these people, who want to go back to the country, giving back to the society. The challenges you have faced, which you can share.
Well, I came back to Pakistan in 2020, post-COVID period, you know, or during COVID, and that was the time I was writing my thesis. And then when I finished, I got a job in the same university I am now. Um, yeah, exactly the same. I mean, it was challenging. I was used to do a lot of work, you know, a lot of experiments and a lot of essays and a lot of research and a lot of reading. When I came back, the situation was completely different. I mean, uh, I cannot do as much as I want. I cannot stay in the lab or in my office as much as I want. And I cannot, for example, arrange I mean, I want to the students to learn things. I want to arrange a workshop or a training or a hands-on something like that. I go and interestingly, a story came to my mind. In January, I arranged a hands-on workshop on dengue control and molecular biology techniques in vector-borne diseases whatsoever. So I talked to the head of the department. He said, "Go ahead, it's very good." And so I printed, and I'm doing everything with my own money. Would you believe it? So I printed a flex. I invited people from different parts of the world, of the country, and I invited people to talk online. When I posted the flex of the workshop, the security personnel came to me and said, "You cannot do it." I said, "I have the word of my head of department." He said, "Go ahead." And you asked me not to do. Oh no, there is no formal permission for the workshop as per now. No, no. I said, okay, I'll go. I went back to the head of the department. He's a very supportive guy. And I said, they're not allowing me to do it. And he said, do it and tell them that I am head of the department and whatever I want should be done here. So I mean, yeah, a lot of challenges, a lot of hurdles, but the thing is that if we do not try to change this culture, we are going to succumb to these hurdles, and we'll be part of this thing. So yeah, a lot of challenges.
So this is what, as you mentioned, that there are challenges. There will be going to be more hurdles, either one way
Going.
or the other way. So whenever people talk about having the barriers, either it is infrastructure or it is, as you mentioned, the hierarchical society, or in different countries, they are. Empowering Science Foundation believes in breaking the barriers, and that is one of the things. When we came up with this idea of researcher celebrity, people say is like, what are you talking about? you know Only people who get Nobel laureates should be recognized in the field of science. And the first idea was like, the every single researcher should be celebrated. And for us, that's why we have this series called as Researcher Celebrity, because here we say, let's celebrate research. As you mentioned, hurdles. People have their taboos in their mind. Every one person who have spent minutes, hours, weeks, days, years to research, we should acknowledge them. And people like you who have done research in their countries, who according to the world, whenever you mentioned about vector-borne disease, there is one terminology which is very popular, like old world, new world. New world, they say it's United States of America. Old world, most of the
Africa.
Asian
Yeah.
countries, African countries. I always say that, how do you define this old or new world for vector-borne diseases? Because your vectors have no clue where they are. Especially when, like, Stephen's eye has just moved into Africa. Can
Exactly.
anyone say that Anopheles Stephen's eye is moving from old world to old world or to other ones? But
Yeah. Or they knew that the life in the new world is better than what is. Yeah.
so, that being said, when we talk about like the different challenges you have faced in Pakistan and in Brazil, because you have done your PhD in there in Fiocruz, I can say that no PhD is a smooth, enjoyable ride. It is
Yep.
always a roller coaster. What you can share based on your experiences at Fiocruz?
Well, Fiocruz is a very good place for neglected tropical diseases research. Uh, when you want to get recognition of your institute, so you should go for international students. That's the old phenomena. But what I felt different in Fiocruz, that they provide the same opportunities, the same resources, even to Brazilian, you know, and that do not care about the reputation or whatsoever. They always try to support research and good health. So I was like, if you see the location of Fiocruz, it is surrounded by three huge slums of the country. You know, so they support life. I'd say they support life. They support research, and they always support your creative ideas. For example, once I was doing an experiment, and I posted in. I'm very outspoken person. You might have noted it. That I said in the group, in the WhatsApp group, that I performed this essay using different concentration of different solution, and I got different results. And one of the quality control guys from the lab said, "No, you should do it according to the WHO protocol." I said, I was like a bit afraid. Oh, I did something different from the WHO protocol, and I'll have to face the music. My supervisor, he came into the discussion, and he said, "No, WHO is not the final word. We are in science. We are in research. We do things, and we tell WHO that this is the thing that we have done, and this is the results that we obtained." So, I mean, this is the level of support that I got at Fiocruz.
Lovely.
The thing is, in research, in science, you have to be accurate. You have to share everything that you did. So when we were publishing this experiment, I mentioned that I followed the WHO protocol, but with and these modifications. So, I mean, yeah, it's an excellent place for people to do science and research, particularly in neglected tropical diseases.
Absolutely. And I think I can add to that. When I was doing PhD as a naive student, one of the conversation between me and Dr. Tia, like my PhD supervisor, was this only. When I mentioned I just followed WHO protocol, and he's like, WHO is an organization.
Yep.
It's not what tells you to do science. It is telling you that what scientists have found and they have published, as you mentioned. So sometimes we, as in early career researchers, also miss these fine details, that how we should do our science. So, coming now from the student phase to the mentor phase, now you are mentoring PhD students. The things which you have learned at Fiocruz, and you think you should be teaching those and trying to give and pass on to the next generation of researchers in Pakistan.
Well, the first thing that I tell my students is to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to be fair in science is very fundamental and very best. You have to do, and you have to report what you actually have got. In our society, people always look for significant results, and I said, getting significant results is not always the good thing. You have to tell people that I performed these experiments and this is what I got. This is also a great finding. Another thing is, which I think is very important, is the devotion. I tell people to be devoted to science and whatever you are doing. If you are not devoted, you are not going to achieve anything. You know. And the third thing is that uh, whenever you are doing anything, for example, be your experiment part of a basic research or applied research, try to help society in one way or another. For example, if you are doing very basic kind of research, doing and you are searching for an enzyme inside the nucleus of a plant cell, please pass on this knowledge to the next person. If you're doing something applied, for example, what I did, tell people about your findings and educate people, because what is lacking is that uh, we do not educate people with our findings. The thing that we are after these days is the publications. Publications should never judge the quality of your research. It always should be, how are you supporting society with your research. Another thing is that, like, research should not be done for money, because people always think that I am doing this thing and I am going to get a good job after doing this thing. No, never. Research and science is always done for the first thing, for you to understand what is going on, and the next thing is, how can you help with this research. uh, how can you help society with this research.
Absolutely. And I think the one of the sensitive topics in research now, when people say publish or perish, you just touched upon that, and I would like to know your thoughts that when now you are mentoring your PhD students, how you convey this message or educate them or train them for their future, that how they should maintain a balance between publication but not, manipulating the data. Whereas just if there are no positive results, because it is one of the biggest challenge that the negative results, people do not want to communicate with them.
Yeah, I mean, whenever a student come to me with the fabricated data or manipulated data, I am a very bad person in that scenario. I never support such kind of data. When I came to Pakistan, a student came to me and wrote a lot of papers mentioning that it is the progress report of a project and whatsoever, and I should sign it. I said, I'll never sign it. I have to see the results and all the stuff before I sign it. And he said, "No, we do it this way in this society." I said, "We are misleading the
Mm,
science paternity in the society, and it will ultimately cost us, not
absolutely.
anyone. I mean, if I am publishing a fabricated data or manipulated data, it will cost me. It will before it costs anyone else. Ultimately, it is going to harm me. So and my students, they know that I am a kind of person who never supports this kind of. For example, I did my PhD in 2021, and I have 6 research papers and 1 book chapter. This is all what I have. I have seen people who have done PhD last year and they have like 94 publications and you know a lot of stuff. So I mean, I always tell my students, coming to your question, it should be quality of your research, not the quantity. And
Absolutely.
as you mentioned, you didn't get any good results or positive results or significant results. Please communicate what you have found. It still is a research, you know?
Absolutely. And this is something which we always say, that result is a result, and most often, in most of the cases, like the biggest discoveries were those serendipity where the experiments have not followed the hypothesis. So getting the failed hypothesis sometimes bring the most wonderful research experiments, the results and what not all, and that is sometimes opens the new pathway for next generation to do their research. This brings us to next question about the level of commitment and devotion and passion. You mentioned that the student should be passionate about their research, devoted about their research, and committed to it. But now, more than ever, people started talking about work life balance, mental health of PhD students. What are your thoughts, and how do you mentor them?
Well, excellent question again. But before coming to that, I'll add one point about doing science in a different way, because I was reading something a couple of days ago, and the scientists said that we were trying to manage the mosquito population in urban cities, and we were able to control malaria. you know it was unexpected. We tried to manage the mosquito population, and we control malaria. So as you mentioned, it always comes the unexpected way. About the work life balance and mental health of PhD students and all this stuff, I do science. I am in the lab from morning to evening. That's when I go home, I cook. I'll answer based on what I experienced and what helped me. I cook. I go to the gym. I listen to some good podcast. I listen to some good music, Lata ji, and all good music is good music. It has no language. I play cricket on my weekends. I am playing cricket. I go hiking. So I mean, you should do science. You should be devoted to science, but you should also focus on your life outside the lab. Read a good book, go hiking, go for a picnic, talk to your friends, listen to some good music. And I always, when I go to my class, I'm teaching a course to a PhD class. I talk about music, I talk about books, I talk about podcasts. So keeping all these things in balance ultimately helps you. If you are only talking about science, if you are like if you I mean, there are days when you cannot sleep because you're thinking about an experiment. And when you get to sleep, you dream about that experiment. I think, yeah,
Yes.
man, you have experienced that as well.
I think we
So
all do experience that. For sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, keeping balance is extremely, extremely important and worth mentioning. Please, I would convey this message to my students and to your listeners as well. Please always consult a psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you think you are doing good, please go and talk to them and tell them what you're going through and experience. I mean, keeping good friends, family, and sports and books and music, they also help. But it is also very important and very fundamental to talk to psychologists once in a while.
Absolutely. And I think this brings us to the next topic, and probably the last one for this conversation, acknowledging the burnouts. As a researcher, as a human, it is important to identify when you feel that this is your time, you are burning out, so that once you acknowledge those phases or sessions, then you can take breaks, as Dr. Rafi mentioned, go out hiking, listening to music, talking to friends, spending some time with family, whatever rejuvenates you, because your rejuvenation prepares you for the next stage of your experiments, and then probably sometimes everything is working, which was not when you were doing the same experiment with the same chemicals when you were burnout. There were so many things which could have been going wrong all the way. And now, after taking this break, as Dr. Ravi mentioned, now everything is working. So, having that positive attitude is also important. Having those support system of your friends, family is another part. Now, at the edge of the conversation, Dr. Rafi, I would like to ask the word of wisdom, as we say in for this podcast, that based on your experience, what you can suggest the early career faculties that how they should approach it.
Well, I am coming from a society where, like, we face a lot of challenges, bureaucracy and politics and whatsoever. In our department, in a university, when you go to the bank or whatsoever. So, I'm a kind of a person who is easy to go. I mean, when I when I face something like that, I I talk to my seniors about that, and I mean, because they have gone through all this. I mean, so sometimes there are few challenges that you just say, "Oh, I'm not doing. I cannot uh, go through it anymore." But I mean, the stronger you are, the better you are. And it always adds to your growth. I mean, the more challenging situations you face, the more you grow as a researcher, as a person, as a human, and all the stuff. So, I mean, it's always challenging to be in part of the world where we are in now. but I take it positive. I was reading a book a few days ago, and they said that every suffering that you face, you take it as a future lesson. Take it as you are talking in front of a lot of audience, talking about this suffering and telling people that how you got through it, how was your journey.
This is exactly what all these conversations are about: the challenges and the accomplishments of researchers. And with this, we'll say Dr. Rafi has shared this last topic of like being resilient, being perseverant are the key for researchers anywhere in this world. And thank you so much, Dr. Rafi, for sharing the
You're
journey
welcome.
and igniting the few young souls and minds who happen to be researchers and see themselves the next generation of researchers. For all the audiences, we can say that if you want to write to Dr. Rafi, you can write to him. If you uh, want us to put you in touch with our researcher celebrities, we are there to help you. The only thing what we want from you is like if research makes you happy, we are there to support you. With this, we'll say stay tuned for all the audience. And once again, thank you so much, Dr. Rafi, for sharing the story with us.
Thank you so much, dear. Thank you. This means a lot.